Joining us now to discuss this in the context of Trump's latest message to Prime Minister Modi is Atul Keshap, President of the US-India Business Council. Ambassador Keshap, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you, what's your expectation now from the India-US trade negotiations, which have now taken a very positive turn after this direct phone call between the leaders?
Well, thank you, Parikshit Ji. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And first, may I mention that today is a very auspicious day. It's the Honorable Prime Minister of India's 75th birthday, so warmest birthday greetings to him. Look, I think it's a delightful development that the President and the Prime Minister spoke, and the President conveyed his birthday greetings as well. I noted that in the Prime Minister's tweet mentioning it, that he also mentioned Ukraine. So I think a couple things are happening. First of all, let me say that the U.S.-India Business Council, its member companies, American and Indian, want to see U.S.-India relations to remain friendly and productive. We believe in the passion and the potential of the relationship. We believe in how much we can do together. So what needs to get done? I think, number one, they need to finalize their Phase 1A tariff agreement. I was delighted to see that my friend Brendan Lynch was in town the other day, the Assistant United States Trade Representative. My understanding is that Rajesh Agarwal, the Indian trade negotiator, will be heading to Washington soon. These are good things. This is exactly what the two governments need to be doing. And I wish that it would also lead to a broader discussion on services, because at the end of the day, that's where the real energy in U.S.-India relations is. Second, I think there also needs to be some talk about the geostrategic moment and the widening risks of a greater war in Europe.
Right. That indeed is important. From what we understand, that a deal was almost done in June and the two sides were very close to signing it. What do you think needs to be done now? What's the unfinished agenda, so to say, that both countries need to clinch and clinch quickly?
Well, I think the U.S. made its point about market access, and this is something that President Trump feels very keenly about. And what we heard in remarks by Secretary Besson is that there seems to be some new openness in the negotiations. And so I think that there's more promise now about the actual tariff-focused negotiations of the Phase 1A. Now we need to move on to sort of more broad discussions on things like how we foster a spirit of innovation, especially in the services economy that is very dynamic in India and America. There needs to be some discussion, I think, between the two governments about glide paths on some of the issues that we've talked about earlier involving Russian oil. That is best done behind closed doors. And it's, I think, related to the American fear that the war in Europe is actually in a very risky phase. If you look at how the Baltics and the Poles are rushing to enhance their capability to ward off a Russian attack, this is where India has enormous influence, access, impact in Moscow to try to end this disastrous war that Mr. Putin launched. And I hope that that can also potentially be an area where the U.S. and India work well together. But for business, here's the bottom line. I was in San Francisco and in Palo Alto last week for our Jubilee Special Summit. All of the conversation was about how America and India are at the forefront of innovation on things like artificial intelligence, especially Agentic AI, which is the AI that has agency to fix problems and solve challenges. Indian brains, American money are leading the world and need to lead the world, lest our competitors who are, frankly, don't share our values are to take the pole position. So if we can get the psychological ripple effect of a Phase 1 trade deal done, it will give the businesses that are the real innovators the impetus to keep on doing what they've been doing with renewed confidence that both governments support them.
Right. Ambassador Keshap, when it comes to agriculture and dairy, and the U.S. wanted access for the U.S. farmers in the Indian agriculture sector and the dairy sector as well. But what is your understanding? Is the U.S. really seeking for all-out access or access to certain very niche products, such as milk and cheese for that matter, or maybe pecan nuts, pistachios, and certain items in agriculture which may not make a big dent or may not harm the interests of farmers in India in a very big way? What's your thought?
There have been some unsourced news stories that have indicated that the U.S. has adjusted its position on some of these things and is looking to more high-value products as opposed to some of the things that create political difficulty in India. Look, Pariksha ji, I think there's been an awareness and an understanding on both sides. Both sides have peered over the brink. They have realized they might have gone too far. They've stepped back from that brink. They are listening to each other more. The mood music has changed in the room, which is extremely important and comes as a great relief for the many of us who love this relationship and work very hard for it. So now we have to see where the negotiations go. My sense is that if India and the US can really break down some of the market access issues, some of the non-tariff barrier issues, show that there's a willingness and a desire to get to that 500 billion by unleashing the animal instincts of our capitalist economies and our open markets, then I think these small issues related to this dairy issue or that milk issue kind of fall away, because these are small dollar issues. They don't have a giant impact on the growth of the relationship. What is more critical is that our two great private sectors feel like they can do more and more business with each other. You mentioned investment in your lead-in. There's a giant amount of investment coming from America into India and from India into America. Indeed, the American numbers would be even bigger if you accounted for flows through third countries like Mauritius, Singapore, and others. So we are players in each other's systems. And if we can overlook some of the very small, very tight political issues that create political problems internally and focus on the big wins and the big gains, then it will be a very productive trade agreement. And as I said, send a very powerful psychological signal that the game is on and that we need to get to 500 billion quickly.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Keshap, for joining us on the program, giving us your view on the positive negotiations between India and US and what we can expect in the days to come.
Good day.
On that note, we take a short break, but we continue our focus on India-US trade ties on the other side with Brookings Institution's Tanvi Madan.